So in my on the lawn at the side of the house and towards the edge of the boundary of the property, we've got this bay. It's a culinary bay. It's going mad. So the recipe I'm doing today is pork adobo, which is a Philippine dish, and it calls for some bay. So I've got this lovely early summer growth, and that's just about as much as I need. If you live local to me, help yourself to that bay, help yourself to as much of that as you need. Saves buying it in the shops. That's one of my rosemary bushes, and that's another one, and I've put those plastic downpipe gaiters on them to stop the strimmer and the lawnmower destroying them. Okay, back to the recipe. Okay, you might notice a little bit background noise from the fan, but it's sweltering hot here today in North Wales, so I'm going to keep the fan running, I'm afraid. Right, you saw me pick this bay in the previous excerpt, and what I've done is I've put that in there with about 12 cloves of garlic. This dish is not light on garlic. In here is 500 grams of belly pork. You can, if you don't eat pork, you can replace this with turkey leg meat, but you'll only get an approximation of what it's like. In this case, I've sourced belly pork with the skin on, because that will then be more authentic to the original Filipino dish, pork adobo. And generally they will serve it with the skin on, although I have had it with it off on many occasions, but also served by Filipinos. And one time in Luzon in the Philippines, I had a version of this with dwarf bananas in it, but this is generally regarded as the main recipe. So they use quite a lot of bay in this, a couple of 3 or 4 leaves of bay. I'm using this early spring growth from my own bay laurel, and along with the garlic. The garlic cloves are just lightly crushed but left mostly whole. Into that I'm going to put some black pepper, and what's that? It's about a dessert spoonful of black pepper. Don't go light on the pepper. This is quite a peppery dish. And then I'm just going to put in, for now, I'm just going to put in a drizzle of soy sauce, light soy sauce, and I'm going to give that the good news with my hands. So that will now sit and marinade until I need it, and then all the rest of the action will take place outside on my makeshift wok station. You want to marinate this for at least a couple of hours, preferably around 4 hours, but at least a couple of hours. However, you know, in a pinch you can just go in and cook it straight away. All right, what I've done is I've tipped in about a dessert spoonful of cornstarch into the pork that's been marinating for about 4 hours. And now I'm just going to give it a stir around. There are so many different recipes for this wonderful dish, and it's quite simple. There's no need to make it complicated. What the corn flour does there is it protects to some extent the texture of the meat as it's going into high heat. Okay, I'll just put that to one side for a second, and then I'm going to open up my little, take out my, that's a mixture of beef and pork fat, and that's a chili, and that chili's purely for garnish at the end. So let's get this onion chopped up. I just want to chop it up fairly fine, just in sort of 1 centimetre pieces, like that, 1/2 inch pieces, and that's all ready to go now. And what I'll do is I'll shred up my chili, which will be going on as a garnish, like I said, at the end. This was frozen previously, so it's not cutting how you might expect. There you go, that's all ready to go. So over to the wok station. Okay, the charcoal's burning fiercely. I'm just going to drop my wok on there and get that hot. And while that's getting hot, I'm just going to peel this fat cake and drop that in. You can also use cooking oil. Use about 2 tablespoons of cooking oil. So the fat's melted and it's starting to smoke. So in goes all my pork and marinade. Put everything in there. And then all I have to do is stir and fry, because I want to get that nice and brown before I continue. If you're doing this indoors, use your highest heat setting at this point on your stove. Chucking a bit more wood, get that fierce. I just want some flame at this point. What I sometimes do is go in with my cooking chopsticks and just turn over individual pieces that I've missed. I love cooking with a wok. I love the energy. I particularly love the flavour of it. There's a special flavour that comes up from the wok itself. In Hong Kong, they call that wok hei, which literally means wok up. You know, the aroma and the smoke that comes up from a hot wok. Right, now that's started to go nice and brown, I'm going to throw in my onion, all the onion you saw me chop. It's about the size of a medium onion. Doesn't have to be too finely chopped, that's up to you. And I'm going to keep that moving in there, in that heat. Don't want anything in particular to burn in that incredible heat from that charcoal and wood. I noticed some Filipino recipes call for onion and some don't. I particularly like onion, so I'm using it. And I love garlic. God, I love garlic. Right, into that now, I'm putting a dessert spoon of sugar. And I'll give that a stir and let that stir in, because that will help caramelise the contents of that wok. And say this method of cooking with soy sauce and vinegar. Well, the vinegar cooking came from probably from the Spanish sailors who first colonised the Philippines, and then named the islands after their King Philip. And the sailors would have brought with them vinegar, and then they mixed that with the native use of soy sauce. So into that goes half a measure of soy sauce, half a cup, and half a measure of vinegar. And let that come back up to the boil for a minute, because this dish is not finished yet. I'm just going to add a bit of water to bring it up to the level of the pork. And the next part of this is to just simmer this away now on what's left of the heat. Just let that simmer until it reduces and starts to thicken naturally. I love this dish. A couple of weeks ago, if you were to ask me my favourite dish, pork dish, I would probably have said pork with cider and apples and cream, because that's the dish I was cooking at the time. But now we've come to do this. I think this is my favourite pork dish. There's also one I like to do, which is a braised pork and eggs, which is from South China. Fantastic. It's also found all in the Malay Peninsula, cooked by ethnic Chinese, and served in roadside restaurants. Very nice. So I'm just going to let that cook away for a bit. What happens is I'll cook it down, and then I'll keep trying a piece of the pork and seeing if it's cooked. And once it gets really mouth-watering and all melty and gorgeous and a nice sort of unctuous thick sauce, that's when I'll serve it. But if it isn't at that point, I will just add more water and keep simmering it down until it is. So we'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, I'll just put on my rice. So I've added water and reduced it a couple of times, and now we're getting down to this gorgeous, thick, delicious, unctuous sauce. And now is the time to add in my chilli garnish. These chilies are lovely. They're Marinade. They're grown in the UK. Really nice. Sweet, flavourful, not too hot. Just really good flavour chilies. I think they're grown in Somerset, actually, which is southwest of England. So I think it's time to get that off there and serve it up. Right, Rob, start pouring that and I'll get mine, shall I?
Do a frosted glass.
Yeah, and I'll give you a microphone while I'm at it. There you go.
There we are. Beer poured into a frosted glass.
Let's just see that it's all framed nicely. What's that like now, bruv?
Great.
Yeah. That's a nice plate. What I've done is I've served it up with some plain steamed rice. This is a spinach made from nettles, cooked in a Farsi style. I like that. And of course that lovely glistening pork, which we're both going to enjoy. Tuck in, bruv, and give us your opinion. Ooh. I was going to ask if this bench is built to take this kind of weight, but I know you built it. Well, you've got a trestle table in it, you call it. Let's go.
The materials only cost 22 quid. I'm quite proud of that.
£22. How long ago was that?
Within 10 years, I think.
10 years, before the timber went up in price, then it'd probably be about 50 quid worth of timber now, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't be at all surprised.
Well, guys, if you like what you see and you've enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. It really helps. And if you haven't subscribed yet, and a lot of you haven't, please consider subscribing. It costs you nothing. You just sign up to Google and subscribe, and it helps us a lot. It helps us bring you more videos like this, and perhaps more travels as well. I want to be doing a bit of travelling a bit later in the year when it's a bit cooler. So like, subscribe, give us your comments below. We always like to read your comments, and I have a great track record of getting back to, I've seen 99% of all comments. So if you do comment, you're likely to get my response. And like I said, tell your friends, you know, the more people we get in front of, the better it is for me and my brother here. We can afford more interesting meals and journeys. Cheers.